Western Australia, Perth. This series will be about my life in Oz, my unconventional family, and my pom-pom Bella. So, you know what they say, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
I'm down here at my studio with Ranger Red and his critters. So this is a very interesting video today. Ranger Red, can you tell me a little bit about these animals?
Well, Devlin, you're holding Bubblegum the blue tongue, and I'm holding Bob the bobtail. The interesting thing is, a lot of West Australians often talk about blue tongues, and when they're talking about blue tongues, they think of these guys. But this guy here is our bobtail, and Bubblegum there is an actual blue tongue. And in WA, we're very lucky because we have 3 different species of blue tongue. We have a Centralian, which lives in the desert. We have a Western or a wheatbelt form, and we have the Northern blue tongue, which is what you've got there. Now, they both have different defence mechanisms. You can see with Bob here, see how his tail's waving around and that?
Yeah.
What happens is there's certain predators, so animals that feed on other animals, that like to eat these guys, and you'll notice that his head looks very similar to his tail. And you and I know that the head's the bitey part, and the tail is actually the big, fat, meaty, juicy part. So what Bob does to confuse the predators when they come along, he waves and moves his tail very erratically at the predators so they think his head is the bitey part, and that's when they come up to his head and they go chomp, chomp, chomp. And as they're about to go chomp, 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 Bob gently opens his mouth, and then at the last minute he goes and just like you jump back a little bit, so did the predator. So you're not the only one that gets a bit scared. And while the predators jump back, Bob then attempts to make an escape. But he's got these small stumpy legs, so he actually can't run very fast. But what he does have is he has these nice, tough, rough scales, which allows him to get into the shrubs or rockery to get away from the predators, and the predators can't get to him because it's too spiky or too rocky. But he's also got his ears tucked away gently in there, because if he had ears like ours that stuck out and nice soft skin like ours, he wouldn't be able to get into those crevices or those tight squeezing places. Where Bubblegum there, as you can see, if you hold him up close to your nose, you'll see that blue tongue that he's got is very different to the blue tongue on the bobtail. So Bubblegum just gently sits there and sticks his tongue out and goes, and when the animals come along, they actually think he's poisonous, or they think he'll be no good to eat. So that's his defence mechanism. But just remember this, things that are red and things that are black are things that you probably should stay away from. And we later on in one of the other episodes, we might meet something that you'll have to remember, maybe I should stay away from it.
Okay. How come these little lizards are so friendly?
Well, Bubblegum and Bob, who you've met today, they go out to schools and nursing homes and shopping centres, and sometimes even children's birthday parties. Well, I shouldn't say just children, because I've actually done an 80th birthday party and a 40th birthday party, and they're ambassadors for the wild animals that are out there. So these guys, if you came across them in the wild, wouldn't be this friendly. So they're what we call conditioned. Some people ask me if these guys are pets, but they're not pets, because I don't sit at home and watch the television with them like you might with your pet dog or someone might do with their pet cat. But these are special native animals that under licence come out to schools with me, and like I was saying, nursing homes and shopping centres, and they help educate children. Because a couple of other facts about these guys is a lot of people think that these are insect eaters. So if you're an insect eater, like one of the critters we're going to meet later on, we call you insectivorous. If you eat meat, like the dingo who we're going to meet, we call you a carnivore. And if you eat leaves and grass like koalas and kangaroos, we call you a herbivore. But these guys here, they're just like us. We're omnivorous because we eat meat, which is what is classed as protein, and we eat fruit and vegetables. Well, these guys eat insects, which is protein, but they also eat plant matter, and there's a special reason for that, because in Australia, a lot of our area or habitat, which is the home of these guys, we call it a habitat, is often very dry and very little water. So it could also be called desert, and they need water just like we do. Every living thing needs water, And unfortunately, these legs aren't long enough for them to dig deep to get that underground water. So they manage to get the moisture they need by eating very special plants called succulents. And succulents are plants that have leaves that are full of moisture. So a succulent that you might know of is a cactus, or if you're down by the sand dunes, you might see a plant called a pig face. And those leaves of those plants have the moisture that these guys. So just like us, we're omnivorous, and so are bubblegum and bob, they're omnivorous as well.
Yeah.
Now, because these guys are reptiles, I guess a lot of people think being reptiles, you have scales, which these guys do, but often people think of reptiles as being egg layers because things like Terry the turtle lays eggs, and a lot of species of snakes lay eggs. But these guys are special animals. They're what we call live bearers because they don't lay eggs, but they give birth to live young. And Bob here, he's a boy, so he's not going to give birth to anyone. But Betty, who's Bob's partner, when she has her babies, she'll have 2 babies and they'll be nearly the size of his tail. And as soon as they come out, they're independent, so they eat straight away and that. So mum and dad don't feed them, they feed themselves and that.
Oh. So Ranger Ed, what can you tell me about Terry the turtle?
Well, do you know in Western Australia, we're very lucky, although it's a kind of a little bit sad. One of the species of turtles we have is one of the actual rarest turtles in the world, and that's called the Western Swamp Tortoise. And even though it's called the Western Swamp Tortoise, it is actually a turtle because here in Australia we have no tortoises. Tortoises are land animals, but we have turtles, so turtles are aquatic, which means they live in water. Even though they live in water, they have lungs like we do, so they breathe oxygen the same way we do. But one of the special things about the turtle is obviously because of the amount of time they spend in the water, and they might have to go to great depths to get food and that, especially the ones that live out in the ocean, they can slow their breathing down, so they can obviously stay underwater a lot longer than we can, but they still have to come to surface. And notice how Terry's eyes are on top of his head.
Yeah.
Just like a crocodile, when he surfaces, he gently lifts his eyes out and he looks around, and if there's no danger, he can come up and he'll do what we call basking, and he'll sit on a rock or a log like that, and he basks because he needs UV to help make his shell strong. But when he comes to surface and he lifts his eyes out, if there is any danger, he gently slinks back into the water, and this is where he gets really special because he floats up and he sticks that butt in the air, which is called a cloaca, and he breathes in and out. So you might be able to breathe out of yours, but you can't breathe in. And turtles are actually the only animals that can do that.
Did that turtle breathe out his butt? What are you telling me?
Turtles also lay eggs, but obviously eggs need to be incubated and kept warm. So if they laid their eggs in the water, they wouldn't be able to do that. So they come out on land and they dig a hole in the ground and they lay their eggs there and they push the soil back. And that process is known as incubation. Now, with the marine turtles, or the ones that live out in the ocean, they actually hatch when there's a big full moon, because when there's a big full moon, that means that the ocean tide is going to be a lot higher. And unfortunately, when you're a young turtle, there's lots of things that like to feed on you. And we call those things that feed on the turtles, on the young turtle hatchlings, we call them predators, so because they're predating.
Yeah.
So to give them the best chance or the best start, they want to be as close to the water as they can when they're hatching. The problem with our poor freshwater turtles, and you live in an area where there's a lot of lakes, I saw one of your videos the other day when you're at the lake and there's probably some turtles living there, is that we have moved into their habitat and we've gone and built roads and that, and quite often their nesting area or their nesting grounds aren't actually where the lake is, so they've got to come over into our gardens and that, but to get into our gardens to lay the eggs, they've got to cross the road, and unfortunately when you're a turtle, they don't have quite as much road sense as we do. But they come out and they'll dig a hole and they'll lay their eggs there. But unfortunately, we have a lot of predators here in Australia, especially feral animals, and one of those animals is a fox, and foxes like to dig and predate and feed on turtle eggs and that. So turtles need our help as much as possible.
Yeah. So what can people do to save some turtles?
You know, there's lots of things we can do. You could join a conservation group. If you live in an area where you know there's turtles nesting, you can keep an eye on them. If you see them crossing the road, maybe gently go over and nip them and place them back over so there's no chance of them getting squashed in that. And maybe even you could start a group at school that, you know, I work with a lot of children, and at the moment one of the things we're doing is setting up a special cadets group. And my cadets will be working on things to do with conservation. And the turtle, we might go out and we might go to an area where there's a swamp, but the swamp's been taken over by feral weeds and that. So we might do some cleaning up of the area and that. Even being involved in programs to help eradicate feral animals and that. And if you're a dog owner and that, or you know people who own dogs and you have turtles laying in your garden, just maybe make sure that if the people come around with their dogs and that they keep their dog on a lead and they don't let their dog go over near where the turtles are laid their eggs or are hatching or whatever.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming down to the studio, Ranger Red. How can people contact you so they can find you?
If they go online and look up Ranger Red, they'll be able to find me. Or at the end of this segment, we'll have links to my website and contact details of how you can get hold of me if you'd like a wildlife demonstration or you'd like a wildly educational experience with Ranger Red.
Ranger Red, would you maybe like to come back and show us some more critters?
I'd love to do that, and thanks for having me.
Yay, peace out.
And you know what they say, like, subscribe, and hit the bell.
That's for the adult version.